How should I spend my 20s? I'm sure you've asked yourself that question before. I mean, should I know I have? Unfortunately, while I've asked the question, I've never received an answer that I felt satisfied with. You often hear people say, you gotta enjoy your 20s, party, have fun, do it while you're young. And while I do think it's important to have fun, that answer sort of always felt like a cop-out to me. Why? Well, because it's generic. You know, it's what you expect to hear from a person who regrets how they spent their 20s. It's what you expect to hear from a person who thinks that the decisions and actions you take in your 20s don't matter. You're young, so it can all be dismissed. But they're wrong. There's this book called The Defining Decade by clinical psychologist Dr. Meg Jay, and in it she talks about how 80% of life's most defining moments will occur before the age of 35. Now, if we're talking about adult years and we do some quick math, then we'll realize that our 20s make up 60% of that time. The book also mentions that for most people, your earning power is determined during the first 10 years of work, which again, mostly takes place during your 20s. And to top it all off, as a little cherry on top, the book also talks about how most people will be married and have kids before they hit the age of 30, 20s. So if all of these significant events happen or are determined during your 20s, then how can people say that your 20s don't matter? I just don't understand, there's no logic behind it. Now, at the time that I'm recording this, I'm 3 days out from being 25, which means that I am halfway through my 20s. And I feel like I can say with confidence that I finally figured out how I want to spend the rest of my 20s. And today I want to share that with you. So here is how to properly spend and not waste your 20s. Okay, so to start things off, the first way you should spend your 20s is by unlearning everything. Now, when I say everything, I mean pretty much everything. The history you were taught in school, the social constructs you believe, the societal norms you conform to, shit, even your political standings. As a matter of fact, the only thing you should really keep is your ability to read and write and your math skills. Everything else, let that shit go. Up to a certain age, between like 18 and 22, depending on if you go to college or not, most, if not all of what we learn was taught to us by another person. Essentially, it was all another person's interpretations of a particular subject. And we accept these teachings as truths without second guessing them because we just simply don't know any better. But if you go through all of life with just that knowledge that you were taught by someone else, then how can you ever hope to form your own opinions? How can you ever hope to discover yourself? Well, that's the thing, you can't, because none of that information came from you. Now, truthfully, I'm making this sound a hell of a lot easier than it is because people tend to avoid change. And unlearning everything is one of the biggest changes that you can possibly make in your life. Truthfully, I'm still working on it myself. But one thing I do know is that this process starts with doing your own research and your own discovery, which leads me directly into the second thing you should do to not waste your 20s, which is relearn everything in a new way. Obviously, we don't want to go through life being stupid, so once you unlearn everything, you have to relearn it. And you may or may not come back to the same conclusions, but at least at this point, your knowledge will have come from your own efforts, your own understanding of things. You will now own your knowledge. But how do you go about doing this? There's a few things that I would recommend doing. Above all else, reading. Books are a fountain of knowledge, right? And truthfully, it doesn't even have to cost you anything. If you go to your local library and get a card, you can rent books for free. I just did that not so long ago because I got tired of spending money on books. And reading provides you with new perspectives and sort of a glimpse into the ideas of people that you probably wouldn't have come across in your life if you didn't read their books. And it's available for everybody, so do it. Okay, another thing is to travel, visit different cities, have new experiences. You gotta do things with your life, be actively out there searching for just anything. My point with this one is that you have to basically expose yourself to as many different life experiences as possible. You have to live your life in order to gain new perspectives and new knowledge. Okay, and the last thing is meet new people. Talk to people that you probably wouldn't talk to on a regular basis. I'm genuinely convinced that talking to new people can open up your eyes to new ways of life and different career paths that you never even considered. There are unlimited ways out there to earn a living and just live your life, but much of what you know is limited to where you grew up and the people you grew up with. Talking to people will also expose you to different definitions of success because everyone's is different, like my definition of success is to live in accordance with my values, which means lots of free time to spend with family and loved ones, and having enough money to live comfortably. Would I like to be rich? Sure, who wouldn't? But it's not a necessity in order to live my life the way I want to live it. I just want to live comfortably and maybe have a few luxuries here and there. In fact, I'd love to hear what your definition of success is, so leave it down in the comments below. Okay, and my third piece of advice to not waste your 20s, which I kind of already talked about, is spend time doing things. Doing things is how you find hobbies, passions. I would go as far as to say even your purpose. So while the things I talked about previously help you to relearn about the world, doing things is how you learn about yourself. It helps to identify your strengths, it helps to expose your weakness, it helps you to realize what you do and do not enjoy. And it also goes back to gaining new experiences similar to traveling. And on top of that, there are often things that we want to do, but we fear them. Like maybe for some people it's reciting a poem in public, singing at a talent show, skydiving. Skydiving is actually kind of a funny one because it's something that I want to do. I've never done it, but it's on my to-do list, and it's something that people often think of as this crazy, scary experience that's an adrenaline rush, and you have to have courage to do it. And like I said, I've never done it, but my brother has, and I recently had a conversation with him about it, and he explained that, the lead up to it is a little scary. The initial jump is a little scary, but what comes immediately after, after you make the leap out of the plane, is this sort of peace, almost an acceptance, because once you're in the air, there's no going back. And there's almost this serendipitous feeling of time slowing down. But you wouldn't know that without actually doing it. You have to jump out of the plane to feel that peacefulness. And that was fascinating to me because it made me realize that the people giving it this scary reputation were not actually the people doing it. They were just speaking out of fear. And that's the problem with a lot of the knowledge and the mentalities that we have as we go into our 20s. None of it really comes from us. It was given to us, and since we didn't know any better, we accepted it. We adopted others' beliefs as our own, others' definitions of success, others' fears. We took what other people chose to teach us and allowed it to form our identity, to become our identity. So if you ask me, I can't think of a better way to spend your 20s, or really however long it takes, than by unlearning everything you've been taught, relearning everything under your own understanding, and forging your own real, authentic identity. There's this quote I came across recently by a Canadian doctor, Gabor Mate, which is actually about addiction, but I think it fits very well in this situation. Life until now has created you. You've been acting according to ingrained mechanisms wired into your brain before you had a choice in the matter. It is time to recreate, to choose a different life. So ask yourself, are you going to allow life to dictate who you are, to create you? Or do you finally want to take control of your own identity, your own knowledge, your own desires, and use that to create a life that you choose? I know what my answer is. But with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.